if you're anything like me, you thought that you needed 17 or 18 different notes to be able to achieve the film look as it's so dubbed, but that's not really the case. And I'm here to show you exactly how you can do that with this tool that I've been using for the last month, Dehancer. Dehancer did reach out to me to do the review of their product. However, no money was exchanged. They're not paying me to say any of this stuff. They didn't tell me what to say. They're not telling me what to do with it. They just asked that I use the product, give them a review and some feedback on it. And for doing that, I just get to have a license for their software, which fair exchange in my book. But either way, like I said, nobody's paying me to do this. These are all my thoughts and opinions. Yeah, so just gotta get that out of the way because I know how things work around here. Dehancer Pro is a film emulation software that is utilized in your color grading suite or whatever you're using to color grade to achieve the classic film look. As you know, a lot of films were shot on film, on 35mm film or 16mm film back in the day. And what Dehancer is doing is emulating those different film looks, okay? So embedded in Dehancer are a bunch of different film stocks that you can choose from, along with a bunch of other tools that help you grade your already shot footage to make it look more like the classic film look that you would see in movies from the past. So the one thing that a lot of people have been trying to achieve without actually shooting on film is that film look, and that's exactly what Dehancer Pro is allowing you to do here with their software. But that's enough of me talking about it. Let's just hop into it, and I'll show you exactly how I use it to grade my footage and what my thoughts and opinions are on this software. All right, I'm over at my computer now, and I'm gonna go take you guys live through what my process of grading footage inside of DaVinci Resolve is. Now, a lot of the stuff that I'm gonna do in here, you can also do with whatever NLE that you decide to use, whether that's Final Cut or Premiere Pro or whatever grading suite that you decide to grade in. A lot of the techniques are still going to transfer over, so you don't really have to worry about specifically grading in DaVinci. I use DaVinci because I've been using it since I got a Blackmagic back in the day that I regret selling. Either way, let's just hop into DaVinci Resolve. And like I said, a lot of the steps here you can just continue to do with any other editor that you decide to use. All right, right now we're in DaVinci Resolve. I pulled up a clip from my last video portrait that I did with my homegirl Britt. Shout out to her. If you haven't seen that video, by the way, I'll put something up here that links straight to that video, so that you guys can check that out. But a lot of what I'm gonna do here is gonna be what I did to edit that video itself. So we're here in DaVinci Resolve, right? I'm gonna go over to my color tab. And in my color tab, I personally already built out a node tree, or excuse me, a power grade. Over here in my power grades bin, I have built out a power grade that has all of the nodes that I'm gonna need in order to build out this look, right? And we're gonna go through each one of those and how I take my node tree that I have pre-built with only a couple nodes and easily get to the end result that I'm looking for with Dehancer, how Dehancer takes it right over the edge for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and right click on my power grade that I have in here, and I'm gonna hit apply grade. Now what you'll see here, and let me close down the gallery so this, and close down clips and make this a little bit bigger. What you'll see here is I have a CST in, or a color space transform in, and a color space transform out. And then sandwiched in between is all the things that I'm gonna need in order to achieve my final look, right? So for those of you who don't know anything about like CSTs or how they work in DaVinci Resolve, what that CST in is going to do is going to transform the color space that you're using, right? So if you're shooting in any type of log footage or raw footage or whatever the case may be, what you're gonna wanna do is drag a color space transform node, and I'll actually reset this node so that you can see. Right now, this is log footage. Right now, it's saying that it's converting from DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate to Rec 709, Rec 709 Alpha. Rec 709 Alpha because I am using a Mac in order to. That's the system I'm using. So Mac gammas are a little bit different than Windows gammas. Mac reads their blacks and their gammas a little bit differently. So if you're on a Mac or iOS or a Mac OS device, you might want to switch that over to Rec 709 Alpha when you're grading so that your footage is a little bit more accurate. I digress. Let's get back to this. So my CST, I'm going to go over the color space transform and I'm going to drop this CST in here. The color space that I use, because I shot this on a FX30, Sony FX30, I'm going to go down. I shot this in sgamma3.cine for my input color space. And the gamma that I'm going to use, because I did shoot this in S-Log3, is S-Log3. Now notice what changed here. I'm going to also now change this to, because I want to use the DaVinci wide gamut color space to do all of my in-between, my sandwich in-between stuff here. I just like the way that the DaVinci wide gamut tools work inside of DaVinci Resolve. A lot of people like to use the RE Alexa or the RE log profiles with the RE log gamut and RE colors. If that's what they're used to using, that's what they're used to using. I used DaVinci wide gamut and DaVinci intermediate here. So that brings me to my working color space, right? That's what I'm going to be working in. And then on the CST out, I'm going to transform that DaVinci wide gamut, DaVinci intermediate color space that I've been working in to my deliverable color space, which is going to be Rec 709, Rec 709 Alpha, okay? All right, now that we got that out the way, I'm going to do all of my, before I get to Dehancer, I'm going to do all the little things that I need to do in order to make sure that my footage is properly balanced. It's got the look that I want to have, because I never want to go into doing anything with any type of, I don't want to do anything with any type of plugins or LUTs or anything like that before I make sure that my footage is exactly where it's going to be, right? So real quick, I'm just going to go through and do a little bit of balance and adjustment to my footage to make sure that it's all squared away. As you can see here, my node tree, I have a node for balance intent, a node for my curves, and a node for hue and saturation. Quick tip, I personally changed my color space from my hue and saturation to HSV, and then I go over to my color wheel. I'll go over to my color log wheel, and then my saturation is going to be right here on that green middle node, hue, saturation, and I think this is value, if I remember correctly. So if I wanted to adjust my saturation, it's kind of wonky right now. Actually, I need to take a look at why it's doing that. But yeah, if I wanted to change the hue of my footage, hue, saturation, value, right? So either way, that's just what I do. I think hue, saturation, like there it is. It's actually HSL, not HSV. My fault. But anyway, I changed it to HSL. So the hue changes, saturation changes, and then lightness. So my lights and my darks are all controlled there. I found it a lot. It's just a little trip I picked up from somewhere. I don't even remember where. Either way, all right, I'm gonna do a quick adjustment on this to get it to where I'm at, because you're not here to watch me grade fully. If you are, let me know. But we'll get into that in a second, okay? All right, so cool, we're back. Like I made a couple of changes here. If you just check out, I'm just gonna highlight these three nodes, and these are the changes that I made. Balance things out a little bit better. So like now that we're in a good place for, I feel like we're in a good place now to go ahead and check out Dehancer, right? So I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna scroll all the way down to my film emulation. Right here, you'll see Dehancer Pro is right here. I'm gonna drag that on, and immediately you're gonna see it change, right? You're gonna see Dehancer, the Dehancer plugin come in and start doing its effects, right? What it did is it automatically put the input in. It picked a default profile for film, and it did all the effects in here. We're gonna go through all of these one by one, and I'm gonna show you all how I come through and the things that I like about the software. But I'm gonna point out the first thing that I did not like about the software as I'm closing all these down so we can get through them, is that it automatically applies a default. It already says your source is Rec 709, which for me, it's not. It doesn't start with like a clean slate option, which is something that the film emulation tool and built into DaVinci Resolve actually has, right? So for me, what I do is I'll come in here and I will set my source to Rec 709, from Rec 709, excuse me, to DaVinci Wide Gamut Intermediate, because that's the color space that I am currently working in. That's just how my node tree is set up, and I might go back at the end of this, or I may make a separate video on how to grade this if you're only using Dehancer in order to grade your footage, right? So I immediately shifted mine to Rec 709. From Rec 709 to DaVinci Wide Gamut, DaVinci Intermediate. Now, some of the tools that I have in here right under the Input tab is I have the ability to do some of the same things that I did in these nodes for Dehancer Pro. I went ahead and I already adjusted my stuff before I dropped the plugin for Dehancer in. So what I could do technically is I could skip the input for now, and I can go to my film emulation that I'm deciding that I want to use. So as I stated before, Dehancer is a film emulation software. So what it will do for you is it provides a list of a bunch of different film stocks that are currently available for you to choose from for whatever film style or whatever film stock that you like to emulate. So for instance, one of the things that I like to shoot, one of the ones that I like to go to is Kodak Vision 3 500T. So with Kodak Vision 500T, that's one of the film stocks I use. It is an actual film stock that a lot of motion picture films have been shot on. I know you can go to somewhere like ShotDeck and look up Kodak Vision 3 500T or Kodak Vision 200T or 250D or any other film stock and find out exactly what films were shot on that film, right? So either way, I like choosing 500T, or I'll go with my old favorite classic, Cinestill 800T. You have the ability to come in here also and push-pull the film. And if you know anything about film, or if anybody out there shoots film, you'll know that when you push-pull film, it can present different characteristics as far as changes in color and changes in tone. Your lights and your darks, what it does to them, right? So here I am push-pulling the film, and if you notice, the film itself, the colors that you're seeing in front of you are actively changing. Pay attention back here to the white wall. This is why I picked this example, actually. Pay attention to the wall and what pushing and pulling the film actually does to it. Also pay attention down here to your scopes, and also switching over your vector scope and what it does to your skin tones and whatnot, right? As you push-pull the film. But that's one of the tools that's available that I like to use. So the first thing I generally do when I come in here, like I said, is I will go and set my film. For this one, I shot it indoors. I brought my own lights in, so I want to use Cinestill 800T. It's one of my favorite film stocks. So I'm going to run with that one, right? If you notice, and I don't know if the YouTube compression is kind of messing with it or not, but what you'll see here is that this film, or this image is completely grainy. So what I'm actually going to do is hit Shift F, and I'm just going to use Dehancer so you guys can see this a little bit more. But what I can do now is go down to the film grain option here, and I can look and I can pick whatever type of film grain that I want. Generally, you want to match your film grain somewhat to what stock you were shooting with. So I generally go with, if I choose to use like 800T or the 500, the Kodak Vision 500T or D, whatever. Kodak Vision, I would go with like 35mm 500. And I have the ability to control how much grain that I want to leave in my final image or my final video, right? I also have the ability to completely turn off the grain for a cleaner look, right? Which generally I will. I will generally go ahead and clean the grain out of it just because I like a cleaner look here for my image. But now that I've done that, I'm going to go in here and show you some other stuff that they have. Obviously, if you go under the film developer here, you have the ability. Let me go ahead and enable this, because if you don't enable, it won't work. But you can go in and do a contrast boost if you decide that you need more contrast in your image. But again, these tools I will say I usually leave alone because I've done all of that already with my curves, my balance, and my hue and saturation. If the film stock is presenting some variances that I don't necessarily want in my image, I'll probably go back over here and adjust before I adjust in Dehancer. But again, that's only because I built these nodes out before. If I was using just Dehancer, these tools would come in a lot more handy for me if I was just using Dehancer. But nonetheless, you have the ability to come in and do a little bit of film compression. And what I've noticed film compression does, if you take a look at the highlights in the back, or actually the highlights in general, that film compression basically brings the highlights down a little bit, and you can adjust the impact of that compression, right? So if I was to pull that compression's impact off, you'll see those highlights starting to roll in a little bit better. I have the ability to lower the white point or raise the white point. If you lower the white point, you'll start to see the highlights come back in. The tonal range and the color density. Color density is one of those things that I will probably actually use if I want to enrich my colors just a little bit, but it's not really affecting here, which is fine. But we're going to turn that color density off. Actually, let's leave it there. I'm not getting a one-to-one replication of what I actually put out in the last video, or the actual video that I did for this, so is what it is. Expand. So if I needed to raise or lower the black points or the white points in this image, which I think I actually kind of want to raise the overall white points just a little bit here, just from my vision here. I can do that there. Now the print's very interesting, right? So film used to just get printed on different types of film, like the film stocks used to get printed on different types of prints here, right? So most people who are starting to learn about cinematic looks or the film look will know about the 2383 film print. I generally will only use these Kodak prints if I decide to use a Kodak film stock. I found it that they work best with those versus working with any other film stock. I generally only use these two with a Kodak film stock. Like, again, the 500T. It just comes out, I noticed that it comes out a little bit smooth, a little bit better from my eyes when I do it that way. But for this example, like I said, I'm using 800T. I'm just going to leave this at linear. And again, you have the ability to control a lot of things like saturation levels, color density. Here's where color density plays a factor. So you want to change the density or richness of your colors here, the tonal contrast, the overall exposure, so on and so forth. Now, a couple of tools that I don't find myself using a lot. I don't really use the color head to change anything. I don't really use any of the shadow tone. Let me go ahead and enable this. You know, you can change kind of the tones of the shadows here, the tones of your mids, your highlight tones. If you want to look for a split toning effect, right? So if you want to get a little bit of split toning going on, you can do it here. I'll reset those because, yeah. And then there are some other like tools down here as far as things that I actually use. You can add bloom. Bloom is really good for when you want to soften your highlights a little bit, especially here where I'm doing a video portrait. Softening the highlights when I had, you know, a light beaming directly in her face here would definitely help like clear up a little bit. Like, I make the image just a little bit softer. You can add film jitter and damage. So as what that film jitter and damage is, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it here, as I'm scrolling through, you'll see a couple of those specs pop up on the screen. And I'm actually just going to turn this up, and I'm going to turn it to Super 16 so the effect's a little bit more pronounced. But you'll see those, like, that film damage, like as if the film was actually ruined. You'll see that come across the screen. That might be an effect for some people that they would like in their images to give it more of a vintage look, or like a found look, like it's old footage. Personally, I turn this off for the work that I do. The film breath, here on film breath, you can see basically, as you can notice, the tones kind of changing in the back. You can see the film basically, quote unquote, breathing or moving. This is like an effect that used to happen when you would run a film through a projector. You see that film breath going through. Obviously here as well, you can turn the gate weave on as well. Let's do a Super 16. The impact of the gate weave, turn that up. So a little bit of that gate weave going through here. And then you have your overscans. I personally, again, something I don't really use. Let's turn on the overscan here. This is where you generally would get that, as you can see over here, like the film, you'll see the film where the perforations are, right? So you can choose between negative or positive perforations. You can change the shape of the perforations here, if you'll notice. As I go from neat sharp to neat rounded, you can change it to whatever film stock you were, or the film gate that you were using, whether it's Super 16, standard, 35 mil, Panavision. You can, again, change the exposure of your overscan, the scale of the overscan. So if you're looking at just a couple perforations there, how far the lens zooms, the effect. So like if you want to fit the entirety of your image in here somehow, you know, you control where the image is, and then the gate defocus. I like using this to give it more of a, give the edges here a little bit more of a softer look. If I was to use that. Then you can add a vignette down here, control the exposure of the vignette, the size, standard stuff that you would see here. And then down here you have the option of going from high, from fast to slow, or from normal to high as far as the quality goes. I was having a really difficult time myself figuring out which one actually worked better. I can't tell the difference between high or slow, but you know, this is a quick, rough, dirty, like, grade. If I was to turn Dehancer off, obviously they'll be left with that image, what I would start with. And for most people, a straight out, like, just adjustment, if everything was lit well, everything was shot well, the colors were great on set, generally a normal transformation with just a little bit of light grading is good enough for most people. But if you're looking to get that filmic, cinematic look, Dehancer, or using Dehancer, can literally take your image over the top in terms of what you're looking to achieve. I've been using it on the last 5-6 projects that I've been on over the last month, and it's made my color grading process so much easier. This used to be a massive node tree that I had before, and now it's pretty much slimmed down to what you see here. And in all honesty, I could probably knock this out repetitively in like 10 minutes, and then I would be able to copy that look, that same look, if I was to bring, let's say if we brought this image in, right? Let's bring this one in, and just like that, let's go over the clips, like this one, right click on here, and we're gonna apply grade, and boom, just like that, we're good to go. So yeah, that's my process of using Dehancer and how I've been implementing it into my color grading process and my editing process for the last month. Special thanks to them for allowing me to test drive their software for a little while. And yeah, so what I will say, no matter what, Dehancer is not going to save you from having poor set design, from having poor costume design, and having poor lighting. So a lot of the color grading process still determined on set versus what you do in the editor. But once you get it in here, it definitely makes things a whole lot easier to use, especially if you're a beginner. All the tools are just laid out there for you. Like, granted, there are some things that as an editor, like, I wish they would do that DaVinci Resolve itself has built in, like the clean slate option, the ability to start the grading process from a blank slate versus having to go in and change those options. But it's small potatoes in my opinion. Like, I've gotten used to it enough to where I just know where to go and what to do with it. And after one or two runs with it, I pretty much have the process down packed. And as a beginner, I know that's something that you could, that really, really matters. What is going on my screen? Am I bumping something? But either way, that's it from me. If anybody has any questions about my grading process or how I do things, or if you want to get your hands on my node tree, just let me know below, right down in the comment section. Let me know if there's anything I can help you with or whatever, right? With that being said, that's it from me. Like I said, please like, subscribe, share, same old same. I know it gets boring or gets tiring listening to YouTubers beg for subscribers and whatnot, but hey, it's a small channel, I could use the help. But there's no other further questions. Thanks.